Hey, welcome everybody. At the beginning of this course that introduces interpersonal communications, let's start with reviewing the question, what is communication? Well, there are many models and definitions of communication. One definition is that it is a process where people create messages with meaning that carry contexts and are influenced by cultures that use different channels of the media. So communication is the process in which humans collectively create and regulate their social reality. Without communication, we'd be in a very limited and inactive space. Oh, simply stated, communication is how, together, we influence what we know and what happens. So according to our authors, the 5 most common forms of communication modes that are used by college students are text messaging, face-to-face interaction, social networking sites, email, and talking on the phone, not necessarily in that order. Would you agree with this? What's the top on your list? And what do you rarely do? So, what is interpersonal communication? Well, it must take place between 2 or more people. The term for a 2-person is dyad, so 2-person communication is dyadic. And this communication significantly influences our thoughts, emotions, behaviors, and relationships. So chapter 1 introduces us to philosopher Martin Buber, who identified an I-thou relationship where there's mutual openness and responsiveness. This leads to interpersonal communication that's focused on each person, deepening bonds and affirming individual uniqueness. But an I-it orientation leads to impersonal communication, letting outside elements intrude, and even to disrespectful communication. Note, intrapersonal communication refers to talking to oneself with one's own thoughts. Let me talk out loud too. What characterizes interpersonal communication? Well, it conveys content and relationship information. It can be intentional or unintentional. It is inevitable and reversible, meaning we communicate all the time without even realizing it, and we cannot undo the messages that we convey. And it is a dynamic process that goes way beyond the words that we say. Why use interpersonal communication? Good question, right? Well, to fulfill our needs in daily life. Here is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You may be familiar with it. Once the lower need, physiological needs, are fulfilled, we turn to the next higher level, safety. Then what we can lump together as social, love and belonging. Then self-esteem, and finally, self-actualization. Read more about this on page 14. So interpersonal communication fulfills 3 types of goals: self-presentation, how you want to be perceived; instrumental, the practical things that you want to achieve; and relationship, building, maintaining, or even ending bonds with another. So communication competence is the ability to communicate in an appropriate, effective, and ethical manner. Let's look at each aspect. Appropriate communication is the degree to which your communication matches the expectations of the situation, the relationship, and the cultural contexts. We judge how appropriate our communication is through self-monitoring. High self-monitors follow appropriate expectations, while low self-monitors act like themselves, disregarding expectations. So how can we be appropriate? Cultivate an ability to label, organize, and interpret conditions, and cultivate an ability to take on social roles and know appropriate behaviors for those roles. Effective communication is the ability to accomplish self-presentational, instrumental, and relational goals. That means how you want to be perceived. The practical things you want to achieve. And relational, building, maintaining, and ending the bonds with others. We covered those earlier. Now, how can you be effective? Well, cultivate an ability to choose and present a desired self-image, as well as to set goals, anticipate the consequences, and choose effective action. I lump those all together as being strategic. Ethical communication is the set of moral principles that guide our behavior toward others. How can we be ethical? Well, cultivate an ability to respect others and create messages that they can understand. Also, create an ability to receive and understand others' messages. I'd like you to enjoy watching an excerpt from the Office episode Fire Drill after this lecture to observe examples of communication competence and incompetence. So how can you improve your online competence? Choose your medium wisely. Don't assume online is more efficient. Presume that posts are public. Remember, posts are permanent. And practice creating drafts.